you grow up with a NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Hello, hello, hello. It's time for another quick episode. There's a few reviews that we weren't able to get on the main show this week, in the main podcast, so we wanted to give it a bit of a roundup here. We were going to have another episode, I believe, next week, maybe the week after, because it's my birthday, so I'll be taking a few days off, and Birdman will have things running. As far as anything else that's new, we've sort of been swamped, at least on my end, with RPGs to play, and which is nice, but having three pretty major ones being sent all at once, coming out around the exact same time, is a daunting task, to say the least, especially with all the other movies and things that we've had come in. It was sort of spits and spurts of nothing in December and beginning of January, and then here's all the stuff at once. So there's a few things that are going to be included in here. I'm not exactly sure what, because we've got a few things just sitting in our finished reviews folder, and we're like, hey, what should we put in here? But Birdman was going to have some stuff in the show this week, but I believe it's going to be pushed to the next TurdOrTreasure episode. Other than that, we've recorded our episode 0 introductions for the Stargate, Stargate Twig, or SG Twig, which is going to be something that comes later this year once we get our finalized rule set from Wyvern Gaming on the SG1 RPG, and so that's going to be pretty fun. That episode should be released sometime, I believe, next week as well, and I'll come back at the end and sort of give a bit of an update as well on what we see coming, and sort of just my thoughts in general on a lot of the gaming news that's come out lately. So without further ado, let's get to the first review.
Basically, he's a geek, sir.
Leave me alone, geek boy.
Holy shit, you geeks are badass.
It's time for a indie review minute, and in this short special review, we're talking about Tohu, brought to us by publisher The Irregular Corporation. Now, what is Tohu? It is a puzzle point-and-click adventure, sort of hybrid cartoony game where you are in control of a character trying to save this sort of aquatic worlds. It's a very sort of strange and unique art style, and the best way to describe the game would be if you've liked the Professor Layton style games but aren't, this isn't going to be as polished with like tons of voice acting or anything, but if you like those kind of challenging logic puzzles mixed with a hand-drawn cartoony art style, this may be for you. I ended up getting a review code for the Xbox, and interestingly enough, it's a little weird playing with your controller in that you have to move around sort of a mouse pointer with that, but you get used to it fairly quickly. The puzzles are engaging and not too difficult to complete, and I found myself having a lot of fun with it. It's not going to overstay its welcome, and if you're a fan of these quirky puzzle logic point-and-click adventure style games, it's probably going to be up your alley, and you may want to check it out. we have something a little different here for once. We've done some music CD reviews in the past, mostly soundtracks and scores, but this time we got something in the mail that I think is interesting and a little more outside of the box for us, and that is a Skydog International release of Iggy and the Stooges, From KO to Chaos. Now, my knowledge of the Stooges is... I'm not completely unfamiliar. I obviously know Iggy Pop, and I know some of their songs. I knew that they were a proto-punk band, circa the 60s that and 70s that predates what a lot of us would consider to be the height of the punk movement. And sort of like the garage band, raw, do-it-yourself attitude. And I wanted to hear more about it, so when I got the opportunity to check out the new box set from them, I thought, yeah, you know what, let's check it out. And what you get here is an 8-disc set, 7 CDs and a DVD that's fairly short, 20-30 minutes or so, but it's rare acoustic video footage, which is interesting too. Not a lot of punk bands did did acoustic sets, because not a lot of bands could play acoustic or play very well at all. It was all about the feel versus the technical mastery. So I wanted to listen to this, and what's interesting about it is what it includes is their last live show they issued in 1976, as well as 2 source shows. What that means is when you release a live album, a lot of times it's an amalgamation of a few different sets, and they pick the best. Let's say you see a concert movie. For the most part, usually that's pieced together from 2 or 3 nights, or 2 or 3 shows, and they put the best versions together, splice it together, and it's seamless, and you won't even realize that that's the case. So what we have here is additional CDs with the source sets. Interestingly enough, what they did was they grabbed just the raw, board audio and tape audio, then they had to pitch correct it and fix some of the tape speed. So you get different, unique takes on that same show, which is interesting. It also includes like live studio and live performance rare songs. The acoustic shows on DVD, which was interesting, just seeing how it's some of it's recorded from like professional sort of looks like SVHS tape or beta tape you'd use for like a TV presentation from like a radio show or a live concert, and some look a little more like handheld amateur camera, but it's kind of in line with the whole feel of punk rock in itself. So that was fun. There is also an acoustic CD included, like I said, and a 2003 live reunion show when the band got back together after last playing in 1976. There's a 48-page booklet, which is really interesting, and it has a biography, information, rare unseen photos. Everything is packaged together in a cardboard, pretty heavy-duty cardboard box. And it's pretty unique in that I don't think a lot of box sets exist for bands like this, where they collect multiple takes and multiple rare performances from the same concert, and then they just put it all into one. They just even released like the unfinished versions of each, which is pretty neat. Usually you find a couple songs at the end of super deluxe editions, but this is like the whole sets and a couple different versions. Pretty neat overall. I would say if you're a big fan of punk or Iggy Pop or that sort of era of music, it's worth picking up. It might be a little rough if you're somebody who isn't as familiar or isn't already a fan, in that you're not getting studio recordings, you're getting live recordings and then very raw, set recordings, where the difference being that a live recording is generally produced to be as good quality as possible, and there's some of that on here. And then you get these essentially the set recordings, which is just the equivalent of the raw audio fed through a tape. So in that sense, it won't be the best introduction to the band, but if you're somebody who already knows who they are and are already a fan, this is sort of collecting rare things you may not have found before or are super out of print now and hard to find, all in one set.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Our friends at Mill Creek sent over a couple new titles in the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to get a chance to sort of talk about them together because they're different, but at the same time they're in that realm of bargain, sort of pick 'em up to watch, cheaper than a rental releases of stuff. One has been out for a few times on HD before and is getting a re-release, and the other is one that I don't believe has had an HD release before and is part of their I guess, VHS rental cardboard box rewind series. The first is Your Highness. This I did see, but not originally in theaters. I did see it on video when it first came out, and that is the Danny McBride, James Franco, Natalie Portman movie. You know, it's marketed as from the director of Pineapple Express. It was the high fantasy, over the top. Seth Rogen's, I guess, what do they call them? They're not frat pack, they're, stoner pack or whatever. Group of friends put this together. It's hard to believe now that it's been, many, many years. It's been at least 10 years? 11 years now? And it was the over the top Danny McBride. Basically, the better Dungeons and Dragons movie than it had any rights to be, but over the top, gross out comedy, vulgarness, abounds. What we ended up with is the unrated and theatrical version, which changes some few little clips here and there. It includes alternate deleted scenes, a gag reel, the making of, feature commentary with a video interview. It's sort of a pared down version of what Universal had released previously, just in a cheaper re-release that's more accessible because the other stuff's been out of print now for some time. It's the kind of thing where, it'll have a $10 or $15 MSRP, but you're going to find it on pretty much any digital store you go to for about $10. Good deal, great movie for just having a gag and laughing with. I would say, is it as good as Pineapple Express? That's going to be up to personal taste. I consider it to be one of the better ones out there, and I enjoy it. Well worth picking up if you like the raunchy comedies. And then going to the other end of the spectrum, we've got more of a drama, and that is Crossroads, which is a Ralph Macchio movie that I had heard of but never seen before, and this is getting the Blu-ray release treatment in their cardboard slip box for their VHS rewind editions that I personally love. I'm a big fan where they throw them in what appears to be mock cardboard VHS rental sticker boxes, and they are bare bones releases. They're always pretty much in stereo, but they do get a remastered audio and video track, well put together. So what's the plot of this movie? Well, to sort of summarize it, Ralph Macchio, he goes down a weird sort of path. It's the kind of movie that can only exist in the mid to late 80s. He plays a blues musician who's not the greatest, and he meets a man played by Joe Seneca, master of the blues harmonica, and frees him from prison. They go from New York to Mississippi in search of fame, and the blues musician, without spoiling things, tries to break a contract he signed years ago with the devil, and it gets a little bit, almost not quite sci-fi, but just it goes down a bit of a weird turn. It's directed by Walter Hill, who's a fantastic director. So it's very well put together. It's not the kind of movie that would get probably a theatrical release nowadays. Back in the 80s and early 90s when they were willing to take risks on different things. This is a well put together film, and I think not enough people have seen it. Well worth it for your collection. Again, going to be really reasonably priced if you're going to go search it out. I mean, hey, the Karate Kid is famous again because of Cobra Kai. Maybe give this a watch if you're a fan of Ralph Macchio. It's probably one that you may have seen the tape of again on the rental shelf, but hadn't actually picked up before. It's well worth it.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
It's time for another Indie Review Minute. This review is on something that may have been on your radar if you had been watching E3 and a few of the other game show presentations from last year, and that is Devolver Digital's Olija, or Olija. I'm not quite sure exactly how to pronounce it, but it's that pixel-arted sort of homage to the Prince of Persia style game that used to come out on like the Amiga and early DOS computers, side-scrollers. You get a spear and run around and are stranded and try to escape various nefarious creatures and monsters. I'm not usually great at these style of games, but I found myself compelled to play. It's about 4 to 5 hours to complete, depending on your skill level and how you move around. But it is, a indie budget title, very well polished. Best part of the game, if you're not a big fan of the art style, it's going to be, hit or miss with some people, is the controls. It's very easy to control, pretty much pixel perfect control on it. Using your spear, you can lunge across the room, teleport with it, harpoon things, jump to it. You can pogo jump like Scrooge McDuck. Depending on the direction you use the D-pad in when you're attacking, obviously changes the range of your attack as well as doing AoE attacks. Very well put together overall. The AI is a little on the easy side, which is good for me because normally I'm not good at these style of games. So if you're looking for something that isn't going to be too punishing, but is a fun, almost retro HD throwback to the side-scrolling, like what was it, Another World? It reminded me of Prince of Persia style game. Then Olija is probably for you.
Those magnificent bastards.
Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that's going to do it for the show this week. Some interesting stuff, that's for sure. That's been working on the last couple of weeks. And as far as what's coming up, I just wanted to give my thoughts briefly. We'll probably talk about it on the main show, even though I'll be recording remotely from family. It'll be interesting, but pretty much every game now is getting pushed back simply because they're terrified of entering into a cyberpunk situation, and that's actually a good thing. We've heard now that Returnal has been moved to farther down the line. I don't even want to say a date because it's probably going to change again. But there was a lot of games that were going to be coming in February and March that are just not going to now, and that's a good thing because it was getting pretty cramped. RPG wise, which is sort of my bread and butter, we have the Werewolf action RPG. We had Atelier Rise of 2, which we'll have a review out, I believe, this week for that. And then there's Ys 9 coming out, all within a week or two of each other. Maybe 3 weeks tops, which for big JRPGs and action Western RPGs or Euro RPGs, that's pretty major to be releasing all at once. It's kind of, not that it's unheard of. It's just, it feels like we're getting these pockets where they're all converging at once. And I'd almost wish, like, hey, space these out by 3 or 4 weeks apiece. Now, just looking at, what we had in January, You had some smaller titles like Scott Pilgrim, Five Nights at Freddy's Core Collection, little, and I'm not going to go over all of them, but as far as major releases, you went most of January without anything major. You could count Scott Pilgrim, but that's sort of mini major, mini sample major. An important game to be released, but not super duper, AAA. Then you have Hitman on the 20th. So basically nothing for January till the 20th. And then after that, the 26th, we had Atelier Ryza 2, which, again, in RPG circles, fantastic. Not going to be your major mainstream RPG. It should be. It's one of the better ones. And then you've got, like, January 28th. Is there anything there? The Medium. But again, that's free. So, great. There's other small titles, indie titles that are all great, obviously. Just, as far as big titles, you basically have Hitman 3, the Medium. But then, you've got, as far as RPG fans, you've got a few small ones, including Atelier, or medium to large RPGs, Atelier Ryza 2. And then, you jump to February, and there was going to be a lot released in the first 2 weeks of February that just, poof, moved. But you got Ys 9 Monster Nox on the 2nd, so that's on my birthday. Yay, me, birthday. Werewolf, the Apocalypse, Earthblood on the 4th. That's 2 days apart for two of the bigger RPGs of the quarter. Probably the two most hyped. Even though Atelier Ryza 2 is a big game and fantastic, I feel the Ys genre is sort of surpassed it as far as popularity recently. And then Werewolf, the Apocalypse, Earthblood, I think might be one of those sleeper hits that has legs. And then on the 5th, Neo 2 Remastered on the PlayStation 5, so that might be, taking up some people's time. And then you've got Mario 3D World on the 12th. And, a few, again, medium, smaller titles after that. Nothing too major crammed together. Then the 23rd, we have Persona 5 Strikers. So that's going to be a pretty major release. That might be the biggest release other than Mario that month. So, but there was going to be a lot more in there at one point. We were talking, and Bravely Default 2 on the 26th, creeping into the very end of February. There was originally going to be like 4 or 5 more big titles released there. It would have been way too much. I don't think people have the money for that either. So it is smart that they're moving them. I'm not complaining because there's almost too much. And then you jump into March. You got Harvest Moon game coming out. You've got, what is it? Kingdoms of Amalur. That's not really a big deal. But you've got, like I said, the end of the month, or end of February, almost leading into March, that week is Bravely Default 2, then Harvest Moon, and then some games launch on Switch that, were on other platforms, but maybe people passed up till then. Then we got the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake on the 18th. Then Returnal was going to be March 19th, but I believe that just got moved. Then you've got Story of Seasons, so you got your original Harvest Moon, in quotes, team working on a game there. Balan Wonderworld, the 26th of March. That's still, I think that's staying there. It Takes Two, Monster Hunter Rise, all on the same day. Ugh, that's too much. And then technically they have Canon Bridge of Spirits listed there. I don't think so. I don't think it's coming anymore. But then you jump to April, and we'll sort of end there because the dates sort of fall off around there. But Outriders was moved to April. That was going to be originally beginning of February. So I'm glad that moved. We got a Guilty Gear game. Then there's, as far as large titles, Nier Replicant near the end of the month. Pokemon Snap. And who knows what's going to happen from there. There's things that might move into those time slots. There's things that might move outside of it. But it was going to be a ridiculously cramped first week or so of February and then first week of March. It was going to be way too much just blah, blah, blasting about at once. So I'm happy that things are moving. And I guess you can thank Cyberpunk for the disaster that was Cyberpunk. And then, you got the news of GameStop's stocks manipulation, and I don't know if we're going to go into it on the main show because it might be over our heads a little bit, but the reality is it's interesting to see what's happening with it, but don't put too much faith in it. That's all I can say. So that's pretty much going to do it for this week's short mini episode show. We're going to have something probably next week with one. I know we want to get back to recording more loose cannons. It's just a matter of when we're all going to be together. I won't be home till after midweek. So probably in 2 weeks' time, we'll have that sort of stuff on the go again. And then we're going to start doing more Future Imperfects that are not Star Trek Discovery, because we burnt out so bad on that. We were so profoundly disappointed with the show. That I know we'll probably get the DVD or Blu-ray for review, and I'll give it a fair shake, but the reality is I know the content is not something that I necessarily like, but I can also then comment and see whether or not they improve the visual quality of it, what the special features were. I am very genuinely interested in behind the scenes if they have stuff on there, so I can compare. And we'll see what happens there, but the fun stuff on the horizon, and I'll stop rambling, and we'll be back, I guess, this Monday with our next Twig flagship show.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
Lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.